In my past life, my best friend and I married into the prestigious Carter family of traditional medicine. My best friend married the eldest son, Ethan Carter. I married the younger son, Noah Carter. However, my best friend gave birth to 3 children for Ethan, all of whom turned out to be medical prodigies. Meanwhile, I only gave birth to 1 daughter for Noah, and that daughter, she was so foolish that she couldn't even do the simplest math, like 1 plus 2. Noah, who was extremely concerned with his reputation, was utterly humiliated. Years later, at a traditional medicine conference, I brought my daughter along. Just because she stammered while calling out "Daddy," the entire room erupted into laughter. Enraged by the public humiliation, Noah stabbed our daughter to death, then struck me down as well. When I opened my eyes again, both Noah and I had been reborn. This time, at the arranged marriage gathering, Noah was the first to take my best friend's hand and say, "I like you. Will you marry me?" The Carter family, a prestigious household in traditional medicine, was hosting a grand banquet, inviting renowned figures from the medical world and elite families of Charleston. It was a public matchmaking event. My family had been practicing medicine for 3 generations, but our private hospital had recently encountered some troubles. Attending the banquet was my chance to seek the Carter family's help. Thinking about the fate of my previous arranged marriage, bitterness filled my heart. At the center of attention stood the 2 Carter brothers, surrounded by admirers, exuding confidence and charm. Nearby, 2 socialites whispered to each other, "That younger son, Noah Carter, has such a gentle aura. He seems like a real sweetheart. And the eldest, Ethan Carter, is so handsome. But he's kind of cold, isn't he? Not just kind of, he's downright icy. Haven't you heard how indifferent he is? They say his medical skills are unmatched, but if he doesn't like someone, he won't even lift a finger to help them. Noah is different though, he's so easygoing. He treats every patient kindly, no matter who they are. If I were looking for a husband, I'd definitely pick someone as gentle as him." But isn't Noah an illegitimate child? That doesn't matter anymore. He's already been acknowledged by the family, hasn't he? Beside me, my best friend, Olivia James, listened to their conversation with excitement. She clung to my arm, her eyes glued to Noah in the crowd. The moment their gazes accidentally met, she blushed and quickly looked away. I, on the other hand, let out a mocking laugh. In my past life, I had been deceived by that same gentle facade. My grandfather, father, and brother were all doctors. Naturally, I followed in their footsteps, and with my exceptional talent, I became a renowned golden-handed surgeon in Charleston. It was because of my reputation, my skills, and my beauty that Noah chose me as his arranged marriage partner. That was also when I learned that Olivia had always had feelings for him. But on the night of our engagement, he got so drunk that he accidentally ended up in bed with Ethan. A month later, she was pregnant, and so, unwillingly, she married Ethan instead. After getting married, Noah and I lived happily for a while. He was just as everyone said, a caring, warm-hearted man. Back then, I thought I was lucky to have found such a good husband. I never imagined that he would become the source of my greatest suffering. Not long after marrying Ethan, Olivia gave birth to 3 healthy sons in succession. My father-in-law was overjoyed, praising her as the perfect daughter-in-law, and even rewarded her with $900 million. Meanwhile, I couldn't conceive. Over time, Noah started to change. He became impatient with me, quick-tempered, easily irritated. He despised the fact that people whispered about his lack of children. He blamed me, saying that I was the one with a medical condition. So, he forced me to drink endless traditional remedies, endure countless acupuncture sessions, and eventually even made me quit my job at the hospital so I could focus solely on trying to conceive. But I was a doctor. I knew my own body. The problem wasn't with me, it was with him. For 10 whole years, I consumed an endless stream of herbal remedies. I ruined my health, yet I still couldn't get pregnant. I couldn't take it anymore. I told Noah we should get a divorce so he could have children with someone else. He sneered at me. "Do you know how much effort I've put into you? And now you think you can just leave? I only chose you for this arranged marriage because of your medical talent. Did you really think I fell for you? But what good is your talent if you can't even bear a child? Useless." We had a huge argument. I passed out. When I woke up, I found him sitting beside my bed, smiling. "You're pregnant," he said. He seemed to have returned to his old, gentle self, doting on me with affectionate words. And so, I carried his child for 10 months. I gave birth to a daughter, but my happiness didn't last long. Olivia's 3 sons officially began their medical training. Their teachers and family members constantly praised them as medical prodigies. My father-in-law, thrilled by their talent, announced his retirement and handed over most of the Carter family's business empire to Ethan. Meanwhile, my daughter couldn't even solve a simple 1 + 2 equation. She was slow to react, a complete fool. Noah was devastated. He lashed out at me, calling me a worthless woman who couldn't bear him a son, and threw me out of the Carter family with nothing. I didn't feel wronged. In fact, I felt relieved. I took my daughter and started a new life on my own. But at a medical conference, my daughter stammered out a single word: "Daddy." The people around us laughed, teasing Noah. His face turned red with humiliation and he felt utterly disgraced. That very night, he stormed into my house and stabbed my daughter to death. "It's because of this idiot that I can't show my face anywhere," he screamed. "Die, die, die, die." I used every ounce of my strength to push him away, trying to carry my daughter to the hospital. But Noah had lost his mind completely. His face twisted with rage, and he attacked me from behind. As I lay dying, I held my daughter's tiny, lifeless body in my arms. My blood turned cold and my consciousness faded. I never thought I would be reborn. But I was. And not just that, I had returned to the very night of the banquet. The overwhelming hatred in my heart made my fingers tremble. I turned to look at Noah, my eyes ice cold. But before I could do anything, I saw him walking straight toward Olivia. My whole body stiffened. In that moment, I suddenly understood. He had been reborn, too. My 2 sons have been so absorbed in their medical studies that they're nearly 30 and still unmarried. I can't even hope for grandchildren at this rate. Henry Carter, the head of the Carter family, sighed dramatically. Everyone at the banquet understood. This was a matchmaking event, and Henry was here to select a suitable marriage partner for one of his sons. Ethan, the elder son, was born to Henry's first wife. He was an extraordinary talent, revered in the medical world as a legendary healer. Noah, the younger son, was the child of Henry's current wife. Rumor had it that he was an illegitimate son, conceived before marriage. But he had a stellar reputation, widely regarded as a kind-hearted and easygoing man. In my past life, Noah had carefully investigated all the women attending this banquet before making his choice. He knew his medical skills would never surpass Ethan's, and he had been spoiled since childhood, never truly dedicating himself to his studies. So, to make up for his shortcomings, he had wanted to marry a brilliant woman, me. But this time, he didn't even glance in my direction. He walked straight up to Olivia. In front of everyone's shocked expressions, he took her hand and said, "I like you. Will you marry me?" The entire room fell silent. Some people whispered, "Who is she?" Olivia's family, the Jameses, had some wealth, but they weren't even on the guest list for tonight's event. She had begged me to bring her along, and I hadn't thought much of it at the time. After all, these arranged marriages were usually between families of equal status. At most, I thought she would just watch the excitement from the sidelines. Henry frowned and asked, "Are you sure about this?" Noah smiled and nodded. "I've liked Olivia for a long time. I'm using tonight as an opportunity to confess and propose to her." As he spoke, he gazed at Olivia with an affectionate expression. Overjoyed, Olivia didn't hesitate for even a second. "Yes, I'll marry you," she replied eagerly. At that moment, Noah glanced at me just for an instant. But in that fleeting look, I saw it all. Contempt, disdain, utter rejection. It was as if he was looking at a piece of trash. A chill ran down my spine. Memories of my past life's final moments, my fear, my hatred, came rushing back. I clenched my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my palms, the sharp pain grounding me. I was on the verge of losing control, of marching up to Noah and slapping him across the face, of ripping apart his carefully maintained facade. But just as I was about to explode, a warm hand suddenly wrapped around my ice-cold wrist. Startled, I looked up and met a pair of deep, dark eyes. The man before me wore a well-tailored suit, his presence commanding and distant. But at the corners of his lips there was the faintest hint of a smile. "Marry me," he said. Gasps rippled through the room. People exchanged glances, whispering to one another. Are both of the Carter brothers in love with the same woman? Everyone knew that my family's private hospital was in trouble. Whoever married me would have to solve those problems first, pouring resources into stabilizing my family's business. The benefits hadn't even been secured yet, but they would have to clean up my family's mess first. When I was first chosen as a potential match for the Carter family, no one saw me as real competition. Henry furrowed his brows but said nothing. After all, his son was getting married. Noah's expression darkened as he spoke coldly. Ethan, before you get married, you should at least check if your fiancé is physically capable of having children. You wouldn't want to waste your time only to regret it later. A wave of anger surged in my chest, about to explode. But before I could react, Ethan gently took my hand and responded in a calm, indifferent tone. Who I marry is none of your concern, Noah. You should worry about your own choice. Besides, I'm marrying her because I like her, not because of her ability to bear children. Noah's face froze. The implication in Ethan's words was clear. He was mocking Noah for choosing a wife purely for the sake of childbirth. Noah's mother quickly forced a smile, trying to smooth things over. Ethan, your brother is just looking out for you. But since both of you have chosen your partners, and they're willing, let's set a date and make it official. Henry Carter said nothing, but did not object to his son's decisions either. The guests sighed, exchanging glances before finding excuses to leave. As Olivia left, she glanced at me and scoffed. Ethan, I admit this woman is beautiful, but there are plenty of pretty faces out there. Don't let a moment of impulse cost you your future. You'll soon realize she's all looks and no substance. You'll regret it. When I returned home, my parents had already heard the news. After months of stress over the hospital crisis, they finally relaxed a little. Both our family and the Carters began actively preparing for the wedding while discussing how to balance our mutual interests. The day before Noah's wedding, Olivia came to see me. She was glowing with happiness, but the moment she saw me, she seemed a bit uneasy. Tanya, that night, when Noah confessed to me, I was caught off guard. That's why I didn't speak up for you right away. I really love him. He promised he'd give me the best life possible. She hesitated for a moment before lowering her voice. I've heard that his brother is cold and ruthless. I think Ethan only chose to marry you so he could take over your family's hospital. You should reconsider this marriage carefully. I looked at Olivia's self-righteous expression and sneered internally. Before marriage, she had indeed been my best friend. But after marriage, she had only ever watched me suffer from the sidelines, laughing at my misfortune. In my past life, she had also tried to convince me that Noah didn't love me, urging me to marry someone who truly cared for me. Then, when I was drowning in pain from Noah's abuse, she had smiled and said, "See? I told you so." And when I couldn't conceive, she had told me, "If you can't have a baby, just let Noah find someone else to bear his child. You can always raise it as your own, that way you won't have to suffer." Olivia, I hope that if you ever go through what I endured in my last life, you'll still be able to speak such righteous words. Olivia had been eagerly anticipating a grand wedding, dreaming of making a spectacular entrance into high society. But to her surprise, Noah had no intention of hosting an extravagant ceremony. He kept it painfully simple, booking a few tables at a hotel for a small, intimate gathering with close family and friends. There were a few floral arrangements, a hired officiant, and that was it. Olivia was so upset she cried, feeling utterly humiliated. Noah, however, gently comforted her, saying, "My father doesn't like excessive displays of wealth. Once we have a child, he'll make it up to us with a grand celebration." Hearing this, I almost laughed. Olivia's family wasn't even considered part of the true elite in Charleston. The only reason Noah had chosen her was because in my past life, she had given birth to 3 genius sons. But Noah was vain. He had always felt insecure about marrying someone beneath his status, which was why he refused to host a lavish wedding. Did the Carter family lack the money for a grand wedding? Of course not. But Olivia was naive enough to believe his lies. I had experienced his sweet words before. In my past life, I had foolishly believed that Noah married me out of love. I had thought his kindness toward me was sincere. But within 3 years of failing to conceive, he changed completely. On the day of my wedding, Ethan held a grand ceremony at the Carter family's private estate, inviting countless elite families from Charleston. Dressed in a crisp white suit, he stood tall and elegant, his usually cold and distant expression tinged with rare joy. As the guests cheered, he wrapped an arm around my waist and lifted my veil, tilting his head to kiss me. "Happy wedding day, my wife," he murmured. I felt my face heat up, my heart pounding wildly. Wasn't Ethan supposed to be cold and unapproachable? Then why did the man before me seem so different from what everyone had said? I recalled that, in my past life, Ethan had rarely appeared at family gatherings with Olivia. He was always distant and indifferent, spending his days immersed in traditional medicine, either working at the hospital or staying in his private apartment. Meanwhile, Olivia had done nothing but mock me, constantly complaining that Ethan was nothing more than a workaholic robot. After the wedding, Ethan took me to live in an apartment outside the Carter estate. I was surprised. "We're not going to live with your parents at the family home?" In my past life, Noah had insisted on living with his parents, claiming it was his duty to care for them, and that he couldn't bear to let the elders be lonely. Ethan loosened his tie slightly and replied casually, "If we lived with them, how would we ever have time to enjoy our married life?" My face heated up. I didn't know how to respond to that. But before I could say anything, Ethan suddenly lifted me into his arms and carried me into the bedroom. When I woke up the next morning, the housekeeper informed me that Ethan had already left on a business trip to treat a patient. I looked at the message he had sent on my phone, feeling a strange sense of emptiness. So, he really was a workaholic. People in high society constantly gossiped that Olivia was Noah's true love. The media portrayed them as the perfect couple. Noah doted on Olivia, spending money on endless health supplements for her, defending her against his own mother, and practically spoiling her in every way possible. He was even called the ideal husband by the press. Meanwhile, for some reason, rumors about me began circulating at the hospital where I worked. Her husband left for a business trip the day after their wedding? Sounds like she's just a pawn in a bigger scheme. Maybe Ethan has someone else he actually loves. A flashy wedding means nothing. These high society marriages are just business deals anyway. They live separate lives. I overheard my colleagues whispering behind my back. And it wasn't just the hospital. The media went even further, publishing scandalous headlines like "Heir of the Carter family forced into a loveless marriage," and "Newlywed Ethan Carter avoids home, prefers work over wife." These rumors grew louder until they reached a boiling point at a family gathering. It had been a year since I last saw Olivia. She no longer looked as glamorous as before. Her figure had grown fuller, her eyes were filled with exhaustion, and there were a few visible breakouts on her face. The moment she saw me, shock and jealousy flickered across her gaze. "Tanya, I never expected that with Ethan gone all the time, you'd still be doing so well." I curled my lips into a faint smile. "Ethan is away, but he eats well, sleeps well, and takes care of himself. Naturally, I do the same." Olivia's expression faltered for a moment before she quickly turned to Noah, linking her arm through his. In a deliberately affectionate tone, she said, "Noah takes such good care of me. He never lets me work too hard and always tells me to just stay home and enjoy life." Seeing that I didn't react, Olivia leaned in and added with fake concern, "Tanya, why don't you quit your job too? Working at the hospital is exhausting. Or is it that Ethan doesn't give you any money?" I chuckled. "Do I look like someone who needs a man to support me? You, of all people, should know my family is wealthy." My voice remained calm, but my words carried a sharp edge. "And who told you my husband doesn't give me money?" Olivia's smile stiffened. Before she could come up with a response, Noah suddenly interjected, "It seems like you really admire my brother, don't you?" I looked at him with an indifferent expression. "Of course, I admire my husband." Noah's face darkened instantly. He let out a cold scoff. Olivia, clearly sensing the tension, clung tighter to Noah's arm, her gaze flickering between the two of us. She tried to pull Noah away, but to everyone's surprise, Noah, who was always known for pampering her, shook off her hand forcefully. Caught off guard, Olivia stumbled backward. Noah's expression was icy as he said in a low voice, "Tanya, Now that you've married my brother, you think you can look down on everyone else? Do you really believe your position is so secure just because Ethan can solve your family's problems? If he can fix them, I can just as easily destroy them again." I let out a quiet laugh, unwilling to waste any more time with him. I turned to leave. But Noah, for some reason, suddenly grabbed my wrist. "I won't allow you to love anyone else." I struggled against his grip, but before I could break free, a cold, authoritative voice came from the entrance. "Let go of her." Everyone turned toward the doorway. Ethan stood there, his sharp gaze locked onto Noah. His voice was calm, but the command in his tone was undeniable. "Are you seriously putting your hands on my wife?" Noah instinctively loosened his grip. Among everyone in the Carter family, aside from their father, the person Noah feared most was Ethan. Ethan's medical talent was unmatched. He had earned the title of a legendary healer at an early age, and countless people sought his expertise every day. His influence had significantly expanded the Carter family's connections, making him someone no one dared to offend. Noah, whose skills in medicine were mediocre at best, was no exception. It was only after marrying Ethan that I truly understood why Noah had always maintained such a good reputation among outsiders. Because Ethan lived separately, the world saw only the illusion that the Carter brothers had a harmonious relationship. And when people couldn't get Ethan's help, they naturally turned to Noah instead. Noah had always relied on his mother's favoritism and Henry Carter's indulgence of his youngest son. Because of this, Ethan had treated many wealthy and powerful patients on Noah's behalf. Over time, rumors had spread. Ethan was cold and indifferent, while Noah was warm and approachable. Ethan glanced at my wrist where Noah had grabbed me earlier. His tone was calm but sharp. "Noah, you're almost 30. Stop acting like a spoiled child clinging to dad all day. Focus on improving your medical skills instead of embarrassing the Carter family." Noah's expression darkened instantly. Ethan's words were clear. He wanted Noah to move out of the Carter estate and stop using his reputation to attract patients. Without that connection, Noah would lose not only his extra income but also his network. Noah sneered. "I'll stay at the family estate as long as I want. You don't get to decide that. Maybe you should focus on treating more patients instead of meddling in my affairs. People are already saying you look down on others just because of your skills." I chuckled. "Noah, your published research papers and patient cases aren't even a third of my husband's. What gives you the right to criticize him? If you're so capable, stop taking patients under his name and treat them yourself." Noah's face turned ashen. His jaw clenched tightly and his voice dripped with resentment. "This has nothing to do with you. How dare you speak like this to your brother-in-law? Did you not hear my warning earlier?" Ethan, clearly irritated, cut him off. "I'll talk to Dad tonight. It's time for you to learn how to be independent." With that, he pulled me upstairs. Once we reached our room, Ethan personally examined my wrist, carefully applying ointment where Noah had grabbed me. He stared at my wrist for a while before speaking in a low voice. "The patients I've been treating this past year. Noah was the one who accepted them. Their cases were rare, so I couldn't ignore them. But don't worry, I won't leave for such a long time again, and I won't let our family mistreat you." I couldn't help but laugh. People say you're cold and emotionless, but in reality, you're just a big softy. Ethan's lips curled into a rare smile. Then, without warning, he pulled me into his arms and kissed me deeply. Henry Carter eventually ordered Noah to move out of the estate. At the same time, someone leaked details about the incident at the banquet. Soon, the whole elite circle knew that the Carter brothers were not as close as they seemed. It also became public knowledge that Noah had been secretly using Ethan's reputation to attract wealthy patients. With his name tarnished, Noah lost a significant portion of his network and influence. After spending half a month in blissful newlywed life, Ethan and I finally returned to our normal work routines. One day, Olivia suddenly showed up at my door, crying. "Tanya, do you like Noah?" she demanded. "You're already married. Why are you ruining his reputation just because he didn't choose you for the arranged marriage? How could you become so unreasonable?" I looked at her in disbelief. Has Noah brainwashed her completely? In my past life, Olivia had always been preoccupied with raising her children. She had never been this obsessed with Noah before. I think you're just jealous because Noah truly loves me, she added, her tone full of self-righteous pity. Tanya, stop interfering. I know you can't have children, and that's why you're acting out. I let out a cold laugh. Wow, Olivia, you really think you're something, huh? Just because you can give birth? Listen, I don't care who Noah loves. The man I love is Ethan. So don't involve me in your mess. Since you're so convinced that your husband is the best, why don't you focus on your own marriage? My gaze swept over her, noticing how much weight she had gained. With a pointed smile, I added, Oh, and if your body is fine, maybe you should stop taking all those supplements. Be careful not to overdo it and ruin your health. Olivia's face twisted in anger, her expression shifting from embarrassment to frustration. Unable to argue back, she stomped her foot and stormed off. The moment she left, I felt a pair of strong arms wrap around my waist from behind. A familiar warm breath tickled my ear. So, my wife truly loves me, huh? Ethan's deep, amused voice sent a shiver down my spine as he pressed against my back. I stiffened, feeling the heat radiating from his body. You're heavy, I muttered. Get off me. But instead of letting go, Ethan pulled me onto his lap, holding me tightly in his embrace. Noah was spoiled by Dad and his mother, he murmured, resting his chin on my shoulder. I gave him a small lesson the other day, but he still hasn't learned his place. He paused for a moment, then added, By the way, do you have any health issues? Olivia was saying you can't have children. My body tensed. If I truly couldn't conceive, at least I wouldn't have to endure the pain of childbirth. But before I could respond, Ethan interrupted my thoughts. I've already checked your pulse before. There's nothing wrong with your body. His tone was firm, but even if there were, if someone is sick, they should be treated. That's all there is to it. I could tell from Ethan's words that he was simply concerned about my health, nothing more, nothing less. A lump formed in my throat, and without thinking, I buried my head against his chest. After that day, Ethan noticed my growing interest in traditional medicine and began introducing me to various medical texts. We often discussed the differences between Eastern and Western medical techniques, sharing insights and debates. Our passion for medicine and our work deepened, and as time passed, my reputation as a surgeon only grew. More and more patients sought me out each month. At the same time, whether intentionally or not, Noah continued to send Ethan patients with rare and complex illnesses. As a result, Ethan's medical skills improved at an even faster rate than in our past life. His expertise in traditional medicine reached an extraordinary level, rivaling even the most senior practitioners with decades of experience. Henry Carter, in his subtle way, began hinting that he wanted Ethan to take over the family's business empire. This made Noah panic. Desperate to secure his own position, he forced Olivia to take countless herbal remedies, hoping she would soon conceive a genius son who could solidify his standing in the Carter family. Olivia suffered immensely, yet she clung to the belief that Noah truly loved her and that she had to give him a son. 5 years passed. Ethan and I continued to grow, both in our medical expertise and in our relationship. Our bond was as strong as ever. We often argued fiercely over medical differences, but outside of work, Ethan never ceased to surprise me with small gestures of love. In medicine, we're rivals and colleagues, he once told me, but in life, I am only your husband. He gave me the utmost respect, professional freedom, and love, so much so that outsiders envied me as the perfect wife with a perfect marriage. Perhaps my previous life had been so full of suffering that fate decided to give me a second chance. And this time, I decided I wanted a child with Ethan. Ethan wholeheartedly supported the idea. He took every test, followed every health regimen, and worked with me to ensure we were both in the best condition to conceive. In my past life, when I failed to get pregnant, Noah and his mother blamed everything on me. He was certain that, as a man from a prestigious medical family, his body could not possibly have any issues. He insisted that my inability to conceive was my own fault. When I finally convinced him to undergo testing with me, the results showed that my body indeed had complications, while his results appeared completely normal. Noah accompanied me to several hospitals, and the diagnosis remained the same. I was the problem. Guilt-ridden and exhausted, I devoted myself to endless treatments. For 10 years, I endured acupuncture, herbal remedies, and every possible method to improve my fertility. I obeyed Noah's every instruction, desperate to fulfill my role as his wife. But when he finally cast me aside, forcing me and my daughter out of the Carter family with nothing, I accidentally discovered the truth. The real problem had never been me, it was Noah. His genetic condition made it nearly impossible for his sperm to survive. Even if by some miracle he fathered a child, the baby would likely be born unhealthy. I had been deceived for 10 years. I had long since healed, yet I had continued to suffer under his lies. So let Noah believe Olivia was his lucky charm, capable of bearing him a genius child. I sneered. Let's see if that luck holds out. While Ethan and I prepared for pregnancy, Olivia's body was deteriorating. One day, she happened to see the results of one of my medical tests. To my surprise, instead of mocking me, she let out a relieved laugh. I knew it. Deep down, you still care whether you can have kids. Her voice carried a hint of smugness. You've gone through so many acupuncture treatments and taken so many herbal remedies over the years. But if you still can't conceive, I suggest you just let Ethan have a child with someone else. That way, you won't have to suffer. I glanced at her, taking in her appearance. Back when she had first married Noah, he had showered her with luxuries, head-to-toe designer outfits, expensive handbags, and an air of arrogance that came with being spoiled. But now, she wore simple, inexpensive clothes. Her bag was from several years ago, clearly outdated. She must have noticed my gaze because she stammered. "What are you looking at?" Noah told me wearing affordable clothes is better for my health. It reduces exposure to harsh chemicals. I smirked. As long as you like it. Then after a pause, I added casually, "By the way, Olivia, if you ever struggle to conceive, you should consider being generous and letting Noah find someone else to have his child. You wouldn't want to hold him back, would you?" Her face twisted with fury, but I didn't bother waiting for a response. I turned and left. Behind me, Olivia stomped her feet in anger. But in the end, it didn't matter. Because not long after, Olivia really did become pregnant. Noah was ecstatic. He immediately took Olivia on a shopping spree, showering her with gifts and promises. "As long as you give birth to a son," he told her, "I'll buy you a villa." Henry Carter and Noah's mother, equally overjoyed, rewarded Olivia with a generous sum of money. Everywhere they went, they boasted about their future grandson. Olivia, having suffered 5 years of feeling unimportant, finally regained her arrogance. She deliberately waited outside my hospital to announce the news. "Tanya, the Carter family doesn't need the little money you make from working. I advise you to quit your job and focus on giving Ethan a son. Otherwise, just as Noah said, you might find yourself divorced one day." She rubbed her still flat stomach proudly, as if she had already secured her place in the family. I smiled. "Olivia, if your baby turns out to be less than what Noah expects, do you really think he won't divorce you?" Her expression froze. By now, she had spent enough years with Noah to know exactly what kind of man he was. She had seen how he treated me when I couldn't give him the son he wanted. And yet, she still clung to her delusions, for now. "You're just jealous," Olivia snapped. "Even if I have a daughter this time, I'll definitely give birth to a son next time. Unlike you, who don't even have the hope of having your own child." I smirked. "And what makes you so sure I don't?" "Noah said so, and I believe him," she retorted stubbornly. I let out a cold laugh. "You're really something, Olivia. Letting someone deceive you and still thanking them for it. Maybe when a person's self-interest is at stake, all rationality disappears. No matter how close we were before, once marriage brought conflicting interests into the mix, there was no way our friendship could have lasted." At that moment, Noah arrived in a hurry, immediately showering Olivia with gentle concern, his demeanor reminiscent of the doting husband he had once been in their early days of marriage. Olivia buried her face in his chest, sobbing as she accused me of jealousy. Noah turned to glare at me, his voice sharp. "Tanya, no matter how much you resent me, don't you dare try to hurt Olivia." He had noticed the changes in me over the years. It was as if he had begun to suspect that I, too, had been reborn. But I merely looked at him with indifference. "I don't care what happens to either of you, just stop showing up in my life." At that moment, Ethan arrived to pick me up from work. He took one glance at the tense atmosphere before pulling me into his arms, his voice cold as he addressed Olivia. "Stop bothering your sister-in-law." Olivia's face paled, and she instinctively shrank back. Noah's expression darkened. "Ethan, are you really going to protect Tanya without even knowing what happened? She's my wife. If I don't protect her, who else should I protect?" Ethan's tone was calm but firm. "Even if she was in the wrong, so what? If either of you comes looking for trouble again, I'll make sure neither of you works in Charleston's medical field, ever again." Noah clenched his fists, his expression unreadable. He knew full well that Henry Carter had already given Ethan near total control over the family's businesses. If Ethan wanted to transfer him to a different hospital in another city, it was entirely within his power. With no choice but to swallow his pride, Noah turned and left. For the next 6 months, things were peaceful. Olivia's belly grew bigger, and soon after, my child was born as well. This time, my baby was welcomed into the world with love, not used as a pawn in a power struggle. When Olivia found out, she called to congratulate me, though her tone was anything but sincere. "Tanya, you always said you didn't care, but you sure worked hard for this, huh? It must have been tough these past few years." I remained silent as she continued. "Noah told me you probably won't ever fully recover. Even if you manage to conceive, your child is likely to have health issues." I could hear the mock sympathy in her voice. In the background, Noah's voice sneered, "Why do you even care, Olivia? Whatever Tanya gives birth to, Ethan will still love it." I scoffed. "Noah, if you've been reborn, shouldn't you know exactly why some children are born unhealthy?" The day Olivia went into labor, Noah had already arranged for a VIP suite in the hospital. He had personally ensured that the best obstetricians in the entire facility would handle her delivery. Henry Carter arrived at the hospital in person, bringing along an entourage of Carter family relatives, all eagerly awaiting the birth of the next heir. Henry beamed with pride, patting Noah's shoulder. "Good job, son. Finally, I get to hold my grandson." Noah was beside himself with joy. But when he turned and saw me, his lips curled into a sneer. I ignored him. Moments later, a nurse emerged from the delivery room, cradling the newborn. "Congratulations, it's a boy." Henry burst into laughter. "A grand celebration is in order. We'll throw the most extravagant 100-day banquet for my grandson." Noah trembled with excitement, reaching out to hold his son. But despite his overwhelming joy, he forced himself to remain composed. His voice was slightly unsteady as he asked, "The baby, he's healthy, right? You've checked everything?" The doctor stepped forward, motioning for the nurse to take the baby for further examination. Noah's face froze. His expression turned stiff, unnatural. Henry, however, remained cheerful. "Go on, let them finish the tests quickly. I want to hold my grandson already." But then came the news that struck like a thunderbolt. The doctor returned with a solemn expression. "The baby's responses are delayed. His cerebellum is underdeveloped. There's a strong likelihood that he may suffer from cognitive impairments." The joyous atmosphere in the room instantly shattered. Henry's laughter stopped abruptly, his face stiffening as the realization sank in. Noah, meanwhile, stood in stunned silence, his lips slightly parted as if unable to process what he had just heard. He muttered under his breath, "Why? I chose a different person this time. How is this possible?" Then his expression twisted in horror and disbelief as he let out a furious roar. "No, this isn't possible. How could he not be normal?" Noah's voice trembled. "Did Olivia not take care of herself properly? Or did she fail to protect the baby? Is that why he was born like this?" But the doctor shattered his delusions with a single sentence. "The baby has a genetic defect." Noah's face twisted in horror. "You're lying. This is all because Olivia didn't take care of herself." His voice rose to a hysterical scream. "How could a mentally impaired child be mine? Get rid of him. Send him to an orphanage." A weak, trembling Olivia rushed out of the hospital room, her body still frail from childbirth. "Noah, are you insane? He's your son." She stood protectively in front of the baby, arms spread wide, refusing to let Noah get close. Tears streamed down her face as she cried, "Do you have any idea how much medicine I took? How many injections I endured just to give birth to him? You were the one who kept saying you needed a son, and now that he's here, you're rejecting him just because he's different? Noah, you're a monster." Hatred flickered in her eyes. I lowered my gaze, my emotions conflicted. In my past life, I'd given birth to a daughter. Noah had never even spared her a glance. He only realized she wasn't normal when she turned 1. And just like now, he had screamed and demanded she be abandoned, saying she was an embarrassment to him. Back then, Henry Carter had been the only one to stop Noah's madness. Noah fell into a miserable state after that. For months, he avoided family gatherings and refused to visit his son, adamantly denying any connection to the child. Meanwhile, Olivia, still recovering from childbirth, was busy nursing their baby. Yet before she had even fully regained her strength, Noah was already pressuring her to conceive again. This time, he told her, we'll have a healthy son. He forced her to take more medications, undergo more injections, convinced that if they just tried again, they would get the child he wanted. Henry berated him multiple times, but Noah refused to change. And Olivia, perhaps out of love, perhaps out of desperation, chose to obey him. While Olivia endured her suffering, I gave birth to a healthy daughter. The moment the doctor confirmed she was perfectly healthy, tears welled up in my eyes. Ethan gently wiped them away, cradling our daughter in his arms. His voice was soft, full of warmth. "You've worked so hard, I'll be a good father." I watched as he carefully practiced holding her, his large hands surprisingly gentle. He even moved his office work to the hospital room so he could stay close to us. "Pregnancy takes a toll on the body," he murmured as he stroked my hair. "One daughter is more than enough for us." His tone was calm, as if seeking my agreement rather than imposing a decision. My heart warmed at his words. I had heard that he had nearly collapsed from exhaustion while waiting outside the delivery room. Thinking about how much he had focused on our daughter these past few years, I smiled. "Ethan, why are you so good to me? This doesn't even feel like an arranged marriage. It feels like we fell in love and got married out of choice." His ears turned slightly red. He coughed awkwardly and muttered, "I've had my eye on you for a long time. Medicine isn't separated by fields. I always admired your skills in Western medicine." I stifled a laugh. So he had secretly been interested in me all along. Ethan and I quickly became doting parents, fully immersed in raising our daughter. But just as we were enjoying our new life, news about Olivia reached me. Less than 5 months after childbirth, Olivia became pregnant again. She had taken every precaution, yet she still suffered a miscarriage. Noah was furious, calling her useless and ordering her to recover quickly so she could conceive again. He didn't care about her well-being, only that she produced a medical prodigy for him. Desperate to ensure she could focus on another pregnancy, Noah secretly abandoned their firstborn at an orphanage. When Olivia found out, she lost her mind. She stormed into the hospital, screaming at him in front of doctors, nurses, and patients. "Noah Carter, you're the real problem. You're the one who can't father a healthy child, but you keep blaming me." Her voice was raw with fury and pain. "You're a coward. You falsified medical reports to convince me that I was the one with the issue, but the truth is, you have a genetic defect. That's why no matter how many children we have, they'll all be sick." Gasps echoed through the hospital halls. News of their fight spread like wildfire. Soon it wasn't just hospital gossip. Olivia and Noah's divorce became a public scandal, even trending online. Henry Carter, enraged, did everything he could to cover up the disgrace his son had brought upon the family. He arranged for Olivia to receive compensation and full custody of the child, ensuring she left the marriage with some dignity. And just like that, Olivia walked away, her child in her arms, her suffering finally over. Noah, however, was utterly ruined. His reputation was in shambles. Any hopes of securing another high-status marriage were dashed. No one wanted to be associated with him. Desperate, he eventually found a new girlfriend and rushed into marriage. But his curse followed him. His new wife nearly died because of him, and when her family learned the truth, they dragged him into a legal battle. Henry, exhausted beyond belief, watched as his youngest son spiraled further into disgrace. His mother, once a proud and well-maintained socialite, aged 10 years overnight. Even with all their wealth and connections, the Carter family could no longer shield him from his own downfall. Henry Carter's wife had been more than a decade younger than him, yet now, standing beside him, she looked even older. The years of stress had worn her down. As for Noah, he never ended up in prison. The court ruled that he was mentally unstable and sent him to a psychiatric hospital. Even in confinement, he muttered to himself over and over, "I was reborn. I can do it again. I'll definitely have a genius son this time." As I stepped out of the courthouse, Olivia stood outside, holding her son in her arms. Her expression was complicated, as if she wanted to say something but didn't know how. After hesitating for a moment, she finally walked up to me and whispered, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have tried to compete with you." I smiled faintly and walked past her without responding. The friendship we once had already been erased in my past life. Why would I care about her now? To me, she was nothing more than a stranger. Years passed and my daughter gradually grew up. Her teachers and relatives constantly praised her as a medical prodigy. As her mother, I knew the truth. She was indeed intelligent, but without patient guidance and proper education, she wouldn't have advanced so quickly. Being the only granddaughter of the Carter family, she was adored and celebrated by everyone around her.